It's time for another personal video. I think I've actually seen a few videos on YouTube with the same general idea. I can't really recall, but I honestly thought it would be a good idea to talk about this stuff because it seems like there's a rise of people talking about their personal experience and personal story with Sonic. So I will gladly talk about my personal story when it comes to Sonic. And also, Sonic's anniversary is next year, so I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead and get to that before that actually happens and approaches. For the sake of this topic of this video, I know probably this video may not get a lot of traction, but that's okay because at the end of the day, I just like to ramble about Sonic in general. But for those who have just recently found my channel or they're finding me through this video, I want to introduce myself real quick because we're getting very personal anyway. My name is Julian. I go by Valentine's Cookies for my YouTube channel. You can call me Valentine's or Julian, it's whatever. I'm 23 at the current moment and I've always loved Sonic the Hedgehog ever since I was a toddler. Sonic has constantly been my main hyperfixation, just honestly all throughout my life. I could maybe tell you why that is the case, but then I also can't at the same time. There's just something about this little blue guy that just scratches my brain and my heart just so perfectly, and I don't know, maybe it's the combination of him being like this cute, really cool, badass blue hedgehog. I don't know, I've always been more geared to liking like animal things I don't know, that's just how my brain has always worked as a kid. I didn't really play with dolls that much, I always played with stuffed animals. I don't know what it is, but he means a whole hell of a lot to me, and even up till now as an adult. On this channel, I love to talk about the characters of Sonic and the stories of Sonic, and I love to analyze that stuff. I know that Sonic at the end of the day is a game character, but the reason why I loved Sonic was because of the storytelling and the characters and all that kind of stuff, which is honestly very much important to the brand of Sonic in general. I was an undiagnosed autistic little girl, and I am very certain, even without a diagnosis right now, which is really hard to get because I live in America and it's very hard as an adult and especially as a woman because autism was severely undiagnosed in little girls in even the early 2000s, and whatever, you're kind of bullshitting your way through life even before the early 2000s as well if you're older than I am. It's just a really difficult situation. Anyway, it still is because I am not a kid, so it's not easy for me to get a diagnosis now, and if I want to, insurance won't cover it and I have to spend hundreds of dollars. Long story. Ugh, but I am definitely sure that my brain works differently from neurotypical people. 100%. That was a really hard battle for me in my very formative years, especially starting school. And let me just go from the beginning. I found Sonic through the Sonic Mega Collection when I was only 3 years old. And even at 3 years old, there was just something about that little blue guy that my toddler brain just latched onto. I have an older brother who's 3 years older than me, and he played a lot of video games, and that's how I ended up kind of becoming a gamer as well, through my brother. And I remember one day on our GameCube that we had back in the apartment, he was playing Sonic Mega Collection, and he let me play a little bit as well because it's pretty normal for like a gamer family to like let their little toddlers like play on the consoles or whatever. And I just remember playing that game and the dopamine that I felt as just a kid. I can just genuinely recall those happy emotions. It's just the music, the atmosphere, just the vibe and the aesthetic of that game. Being able to like scroll through the character bios, and I'm sorry, I can't get over the music in that game. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's it's amazing. I don't know. I have no words for it. It's just it nails nostalgia. It nails the nostalgic feeling so hard. And it's just, that's what's so good about Sonic in general, because despite the game, we don't talk about like Sonic Chronicles, despite the game, they don't miss with their music. And I honestly think the definitive way for me to be introduced to Sonic was through the Sonic Mega Collection, because holy shit, dude. Either way, that was my first introduction to Sonic. And then I believe 3 years later when I turned 6, I went to this is the early 2000s, by the way. I went to this this store where usually, of course, where they're like sell video games or they sell movies. It was like kind of, it's kind of like Blockbuster, but it was one of like those smaller ones in a small town, right? Of course, a lot of people can understand what I'm saying. And they sold Shadow the Hedgehog at that store. And I remember I didn't recognize the character because I only knew who Sonic and Tails was because, well, and Knuckles and Amy because of the character bios, but I didn't know who he was because in Sonic Mega Collection there was actually a trailer for SA2. I didn't play SA2 when I was younger because we never got it and we never were able to buy it. We were a low-income family living in an apartment with, one parent not being able to keep a job for a long period of time, so it was really hard for us to constantly get those kinds of luxuries. But I remember going to this place in town and I saw him and I knew he was a Sonic character and I so badly wanted the game, just so badly. And my mom bought me the game because she knew that I liked Sonic, and she just bought me stuff in general, Sonic wise, if she could afford it, and she would give it to me because she knew it made me happy. I really did not get a lot when I was younger. I did not get a lot of stuff that the average little girl who had money parent wise got. And I know a lot of people can probably relate to that, especially people that have struggled in financial situations. You always feel like you're missing out on something because you just don't have the money. So she was able to treat me in that moment, and I went home with Shadow 05 and she instantly despised the game every time it would fall off the map because I did not have the hand dexterity of of an older child because I was only 6. So every time I'd fall off the map, Shadow would always hit that damn. Not here. And she hated it so much. I miss that game so much. We had an original Xbox and we got the game for the original Xbox. I also know it was on the GameCube as well. And yeah, but we had it on the original Xbox and I badly missed that game so much. My brother ended up selling all of those games in the original Xbox to our cousin. And it makes me so sad because if I still had that game today, I look at those prices on eBay and I just like cry because I just want it so badly. It makes me so sad, and I miss my copy of Sonic Mega Collection for the GameCube so badly, and I hate being broke. Either way, I got older. I, went to school, and I was the kind of kid that at first when I was really young, I was really quiet. I don't think until I hit about maybe middle school I started talking a bit more, but a lot of people actually ended up perceiving me as shy, which was very interesting in my opinion because I would talk when people would talk to me, but I did not have a good school experience. And I do think a lot of that ties back to me literally just being a girl and being an undiagnosed autistic nerdy girl in a very conservative town. And because of that, I was treated like I had the plague. Everybody avoided me. Once I think about it critically, it still doesn't make any sense to me. And the way that I coped with feeling practically, honestly, genuinely like an alien was through Sonic, was through my hyperfixations, my hyperfixation of Sonic. And I would just go home. And these were the times of like early YouTube. And I would just look up Sonic on YouTube. I would watch all of like the cutscenes of the games in the 2000s, and I would listen to Sonic music there. I would like watch like the fan animations that people would make. Yes, I would watch Sonic shorts. Not as crazy as I honestly remember it, but it still was odd. But either way, he helped me a lot. I am one of those people where I genuinely cannot mask a lot. The older I get, I actually get very, very good at it if I'm around people that I highly dislike. But when I was a kid, I just didn't know how to. So a lot of people didn't like me. A lot of kids my age, because I could not conform, did not like me. I was the weird little girl. Julian was the weird girl that interacted differently with people because I didn't understand social cues, and the way that I presented myself was odd. The weird girl, the weird nerdy girl that played video games because girls like games. Girls play video games. Girls like Sonic the Hedgehog. So it didn't make sense to them. So there were a lot of recesses, and I would go out on the swings at recess, not playing with anybody, and I would just swing every recess, the whole recess. And the song that I would use to sing to myself all the time was Can You Feel the Sunshine? And it's like, once I think back on it, I like, I felt very nice during those moments, and it made me very happy. But the more that I think back on it as an adult, it's just so sad. And it feels a little pitiful, but it was the way that I coped. And that song was just like my therapy. So every time I play that song, my mom says that's the Julian song. Or if I ask her, what's a song that you think of when you think of me, she's like, oh, that one Sonic song that you always used to sing all the time. So I guess that's my song. That was my song as a little autistic girl when I didn't have any friends in school, and that's how I got through school. I would express myself a lot with art as well, and I would draw a lot of, back in my day, OCs were actually called FCs, and they were called fan characters. I'm not that fucking old, but we used to call them fan characters. Probably there's a lot of people that watch me that understand that know that, because you were on old internet, early internet. But we would call them fan characters. And so, of course, as honestly any Sonic fan, maybe not any Sonic fan, but of course the ones that were deep into it, I would make my own Sonic fan characters. And I would just draw Sonic in class all the time. If it was like work that I got back that was already graded as a kid, I would just flip over the page, and on the blank half of the page I would just draw Sonic, because you could not stop me. I could not be stopped. It was a disease. There was no stopping me. I had to draw Sonic. I had to draw the Sonic characters. So that lasted my whole elementary life, my whole middle school life, up until I would say maybe my freshman year of high school. I ended up moving on to a different fixation, and I still kept up with Sonic, but keep in mind, this was honestly during the meta era, and I think a lot of people that were Sonic fans can honestly understand where I'm coming from with this. It was just not a good direction for Sonic in general, and there were a lot of, like, not a lot is being generous. There were a few highlights in there and stuff, but it just was not the same kind of vibe like 2000 Sonic, like the Sonic that I grew up with, because I watched Sonic X all the time, every Saturday morning, 4Kids. Even though the 4Kids dub of Sonic is a little horrendous, I do have so much like nostalgic bias towards the voice actors and actresses for the 4Kids cast of Sonic in general. It's just so comforting when I play Shadow of 5 or something and I just hear their voices, and I hear Jason Griffith and I hear Lisa Ortiz. It just makes me so happy. It's just great. It just takes me back to being like that 6, 7, 8-year-old kid, that little girl who just loved Sonic so much. It just takes me back every time. Oh, I have to mention real quick, the early versions of Minecraft, I would play it on my PC, and one thing that I would love to do, I don't know if anybody relates to this, apparently there's no original experience in this world. That's what I'm discovering the more I'm online. So I would get sheep, I would spawn sheep in creative mode, and then I would dye them the characters of the Sonic characters, and then I would name them that. Maybe that was just me, but it probably isn't, and there's probably lots of other people who did it too, but I just had to talk about that because I just remembered it. Either way though, I eventually refound my fixation in Sonic, but that would honestly be after I graduated. But I remember in high school, I would still keep up with stuff when it came to Sonic. During the meta era, I think I was still a little younger as well, because I kept up with Boom, and I was very excited for Boom to come out. And I never watched the show then, but I remember the first or second episode actually had me hooked a little. And then after that, I just kind of stopped. And so for a while, I was not fixated on Sonic, and I moved my fixation, but I kept up with the news. And I remember at some point during high school, I remember having the Game Grumps video of them playing Sonic Forces pop up on my YouTube, and then I was very intrigued because I did not know a new Sonic game came out. So I clicked on it and I watched it, and I just remember them just kind of like, you know, making fun of it, teasing it, and I liked the whole like avatar creation thing. I thought that was really cool, but that game in general, definitely there were problems and could have been executed a lot better. Saying goes for a lot of Sonic games. But then the announcement of a Sonic movie came out, and I remember seeing the poster of Sonic's silhouette, and I remember this guy that like I used to talk to in school because he was nerdy too. I remember showing him that on our school designated laptops that we would like get sent home with, and I remember showing him that, and I was like, why are his calves so muscular? And I just remember like being like, okay, I'll just have to see how he looks after that. And after we finally see his full model, and then I remember being at a Wendy's because my brother was in college at this point. And I remember being at a Wendy's with my family, and I remember having that video recommended to me for the trailer for the first Sonic movie. I remember having it recommended to me on my YouTube. So my YouTube clearly knew that I was interested in Sonic. So it popped up there, and I remember tapping it, like click, just tapping on it and watching it. And I was like, I remember telling my mom, what are they doing? I was just so astonished at how he looked. And so it was very discouraging. I think at that point, I just did not have my fixation on Sonic like I ever did before, because there was no way that was helping me cope with anything. It wasn't. It was making me more disappointed. And then eventually, as time passed, and of course I saw all the stuff when they fixed Sonic's model and everything was okay and fine and dandy, I didn't even watch that movie when it first came out. I watched it, I think maybe 1 or 2 years after it came out, and you know, it was a good movie. I remember like sitting there, I bought it on DVD. One of my coworkers bought it on DVD, and they brought it over for me to watch it. I think it was around my birthday, because they knew I liked Sonic. So I would still talk about Sonic and say, oh yeah, like I've always loved Sonic. He's been my comfort character. Everybody knew that I liked Sonic. So they brought that over to me and we watched it. And I remember sitting there and saying, you know, that was actually a pretty good movie. And so after that, I kind of kept up with Sonic a bit more. And I think around the time when the second Sonic movie first came out, that's when my fixation just started getting stronger again. And this was during around the time where I was at my sickest because of my disability, and constantly being in bed and just being in so much pain because I have chronic pain. I have psoriatic arthritis and fibromyalgia, and those two things together are just one of the most horrible combinations. And for my body specifically, and I know everybody's body is different, so they handle different kinds of things differently, but for me, it took the biggest toll on my body. And I was practically bedridden. Like, I could have been admitted to the hospital, but how was any of us supposed to know in my family? How are we supposed to know? We hadn't had anybody that went through this situation before, somebody that had this kind of pain before. And I remember around the time that Sonic Frontiers came out and a lot of other stuff with Sonic came out, and they were taking Sonic more seriously thanks to Sonic Movie 2 being so successful and that kind of stuff. I remember just laying in my bed, and I had a TV in my room. I remember laying in my bed just watching gameplay of Sonic Frontiers, and I was just so excited. I remember watching Sonic Prime when that came out, and this stuff wasn't that long ago. I mean, around 3 years ago. I mean, that is 3 years ago, but that still doesn't feel like that long ago for me. I can't remember a lot of what has happened in those 3 years just because it's like so foggy to me. And of course it is. I was just in so much agonizing pain that my brain just felt like mush. The brain fog was horrible, but all that I can absolutely remember is Sonic being such a happy force in my life during that time. And like I said before with my mom, she would buy me stuff like Sonic wise when I was younger when she could. We didn't have a lot of merch like that back then. And I get very jealous when I see these kids with Sonic backpacks and I see them with like Sonic water bottles and I see all of this Sonic stuff in Walmart. We didn't have that during the early 2000s, especially in small towns. Maybe you did in cities, but we never had that. If you wanted something Sonic, you needed to look in very obscure places, and even if you did, there was not much. There was definitely not much. So for me, becoming an adult and then going through my sickest and my mom just bringing me home Sonic stuff, I was elated. It just made me so happy because I did not get that shit when I was younger. I am truthfully very jealous of all the kids nowadays that get the Sonic stuff, but hey, I'm an adult now and I can collect all of the Sonic stuff that little Julian could not collect. But truthfully, Sonic was my best friend when I was a little girl. Because the more that I think about being a kid and just having such a hard time in school, the one thing that I can always think of that was constantly there for me was Sonic the Hedgehog. And it may sound corny and it may sound cheesy, but everybody finds something to cope with, whether that's bad or whether it's healthy or it's not healthy, whatever. Mine was just Sonic the Hedgehog. And that even translated into becoming an adult and having my autonomy stripped from me because of my health issues. It translated into those ages as well. He has constantly just been my best friend. And honestly, there's just no other way that I can describe it. There's no other way I can word it. That's just genuinely what it is. When I see new Sonic stuff, when I see just videos of Sonic, animations of Sonic, old animations of Sonic, old like openings of video games, old cutscenes, Sonic X, I'm currently watching the Japanese dub of Sonic X because I never did, and I'm getting to that now. It just makes... I can't explain the kind of comfort that I feel. I can't explain the healing that I genuinely get from finally understanding the way that I functioned as a kid and now as an adult, and understanding that Sonic was always there for me and being able to kind of just like embrace that comfort that he gave me. Because now I am not ashamed of that. Even though it was really hard for me as a little girl, I embrace, oh, I like Sonic. And you're gonna know that I like Sonic because at the end of the day, life is too short for me not to express myself fully in my interests. I have these interests because that's how I am, and there's nothing wrong with that. If everybody liked the same thing, it would be a very, very boring world. So yes, I like the little fast blue guy. I like the confident, cocky little blue guy that has that early 2000s swagger. Sometimes he's mellowed out into a millennial white man because at the end of the day, he is a millennial. Whether I like that characterization of him or not, Sonic is still here and he is not going, and he's doing so much better than he ever has for a few years. And I'm so happy that I can be there with a healed version of myself to embrace that now. And I'm so excited for what else is in store for Sonic. If I could genuinely talk to my younger self now as who I am now, I would tell her to like things unapologetically, because maybe I could not understand it as a kid, but maybe the reason why I gravitated to Sonic so much was because of how his philosophy is. He doesn't necessarily have a kind of philosophy that he actually thinks about. At the end of the day, he doesn't really think, he just does. He just does what he thinks is right, and usually that aligns with the right thing, but he keeps going, and he's a driving force. And if I could honestly talk to my younger self, I would say you picked the right fictional character to latch onto. And there is nothing wrong with you embracing that character. No matter how much people judge you for it, there's nothing wrong with doing that because you picked the best one. Maybe I'm biased, but that's genuinely how I feel. Because the older I get, it just makes more sense to me. And I don't think this little guy is ever gonna be away from me. He will always be in the back of my mind. And at the end of the day, maybe he's my biggest cheerleader. Maybe he's one of them. And that's really cool. I did not think that I would ever become a Sonic tuber, if I can even label myself like that now, but I really hope someday I will be in a better position so I can get more involved with this community and, have some more opportunities. But for right now, I will stay in my room talking about Sonic because that is what genuinely makes me happy. And I'm very happy that there are a lot of people that enjoy hearing me talk about Sonic as well. And if it was to stay that way for the rest of my YouTube career, I would be fine with that. But it would be nice to get out and meet some people. And hopefully someday I will financially be in a better position to be able to do that. So here's to manifesting that and having a long, fun life talking about Sonic and passionately loving Sonic and everything that Sonic has to bring. If any of you can relate to me, especially little girls, people who were once little girls, I know a lot of you can understand my experience. I think it's definitely very relatable in that sense. But if anybody can relate, tell me your personal story with Sonic down in the comments. I probably have not touched on a lot that I could, but the more I make videos on this channel and stuff, I will definitely talk about my personal experience with Sonic and stuff and like how my childhood was a lot more. So of course people are going to get to know me here, but regardless, tell me your stories in the comments. I really want to hear them. And how Sonic has personally, helped you, affected you in your life as well, and your journey with Sonic too. And maybe you rediscovering your love for him too. So yeah, a very personal video, but that is okay because eventually it needed to be made on my channel because I talk about very passionate, deep stuff here, and it connects with Sonic in one way or another. So to end out this video, to everyone watching, I hope you have a good day or good night. Bye-bye. Yo, I just got my Wendy's chili. I bought myself a Shadow Lego set. Look at that. Look at that dude. Look at that bitch. Isn't he cool as fuck? And I'm chilling listening to my Sonic tunes. Life is good. Life is good.